Welcome to Gospel Kanji, a real-world mystery hiding in plain sight for 2,000 years. I'm your host, Kent Cisco. In this first episode, I'd like to reopen the investigation into the Wisemen who visited the Christ child. If the Wisemen were so wise, why didn't they write anything down? Why can't we find anything about them in the countries they're supposed to have hailed from? Arabia, India, Persia, etc. No one has ever found anything about them in any of the places they're supposed to have come from. Whatever happened to them? That's the question that launches our journey today. I know it sounds simple, almost naive, but think about this. What do all the famous explorers have in common? Christopher Columbus, Ferdinand Magellan, Marco Polo, James Cook, David Livingstone, and Lewis and Clark. Well, I'm sure there's plenty they all have in common. But what do they have in common that is meaningful to us who come after them? They've written things down so that we can learn from the knowledge that they gained. The wise men, the Magi, whoever they were, traveled across deserts and nations, possibly seas and oceans. They followed a celestial sign no one else seemed to understand, followed the Christ child, and then vanished. No scroll, no journal, no memoir, no gospel of the Magi, not even a country named. Just the statements, now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." And having been warned by God in a dream not to return to Herod, the Magi left for their own country by another way. 3 opportunities to tell us exactly where they came from and where they returned to. And each time the country is left unnamed. And yet that encounter, that moment, changed the very timeline we live on. The entire world now tracks its calendar by the birth of the child they visited. So let me ask again, why is there no written record of their journey found in their own country and in their own hand? You see, what most people don't realize is that the Bible names countries frequently. When it wants to tell us someone traveled to or from Egypt, it says so. From Ethiopia, it names it. From Persia, Arabia, India, even obscure islands, you'll find them all named. But in Matthew chapter 2, there's a blank. Magi from the east, that's it. And yet within the very story of the Magi, it includes the name of a known country, where we learn of a warning given to Joseph. In Matthew chapter 2, verse 13, it says, "Now when they had gone, they, the Magi, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, 'Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him.'" You see, Egypt is mentioned here. It doesn't say, "and they fled to the southwest." So maybe that unnamed country in the east that the wise men came from and returned to isn't an omission. Maybe it's a clue that these guys traveled from a country that was not yet named and wouldn't be named until hundreds of years later. Because what if the record does exist, just not where anyone thought to look? Let me tell you what I believe. I believe these men did leave a record, just not in Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, or Latin. I believe they embedded their story into one of the most ancient and mysterious writing systems in the world, Kanji. I believe their wisdom has been encoded into the logographic writing system of the Far East. I believe their travels were far more extensive than we have ever imagined. Multiple journeys, possibly spanning decades. And I believe they were not just astronomers, not just spiritual seekers, but almost like high-level intelligence operatives in the most modern sense of the word. Observers, recorders, strategists, analysts, messengers. Think Jason Bourne meets Daniel, the Old Testament prophet and wise man, meets Sherlock Holmes, with a scroll in one hand and a sword in the other. In this opening season of Gospel Kanji, we're going to peel back the layers, slowly, carefully, one kanji at a time. Here's what you can expect. We'll explore the enigmatic story of the Magi found in Scripture and what it might be saying. We'll question the assumptions of historians and theologians respectfully, but relentlessly. We'll dive into ancient Chinese characters, also known as kanji, from the 1st century, that have astonishing correlations with the gospel story. We'll also examine how the kanji may not only reflect biblical themes, but the actual biographies of the men who saw the Christ child with their own eyes. And we'll follow the trail, not just to find out who they were, but what they left behind for us to discover today. Because we're not just chasing history, we're chasing purpose, identity, a legacy of wisdom that transcends millennia and speaks directly to a generation that is aching for direction. So, if you're between the ages of 19 and 91 and you've ever asked, what's the point of all this? Why am I here? Is there a mission for me like there was for the Magi? Then buckle in, because this isn't just a podcast. It's an investigation, a rediscovery, and possibly a calling. Let's reopen the case into the wise men. Let's ask the hard questions that history forgot to ask, and let's follow the trail of breadcrumbs all the way home. Let's begin with the basics of kanji. But don't let the word basic fool you, because this is where the trail really begins. So, what is kanji? At first glance, kanji is a writing system used in Japan, one of 3 actually, alongside hiragana and katakana. But kanji stands apart. It's older, meaningful. It's not an alphabet. Kanji is a system of logographs, visual characters that represent ideas, concepts, and sometimes even entire stories. Each kanji character is like a little work of art, but not just a picture. It's a compressed symbol built from radicals and strokes that carry layers of meaning. Think of it like a miniature painting, except the brushstrokes are codes. And when you start breaking them down, they begin to whisper, hey, I have something I want to tell you. Now here's the kicker. Kanji didn't originate in Japan. It was imported from China. But there's a twist. Many of the core kanji, the foundational ones that the Japanese use today, their creation dates back to the time of Christ. There were many, many contributors to the kanji dictionary of the day. I believe some of these contributors came from the islands of Japan, long before Japan was even a nation. I'll tell you why this is so in future podcasts. For now, independent researchers have found compelling patterns that suggest that the earliest kanji may preserve fragments of ancient records that may echo with stories that sound suspiciously biblical and far Western. Yeah, you heard me right, far Western. Stories that came from halfway around the world in Israel and Greece. Let me give you a taste of these kanji. Take the kanji used in the word for intrusion or invader. The pieces of code inside this kanji are made up of a large symbol that means gate, and inside that gate is another smaller symbol that means horse. Now, put these two together, a horse inside a gate, there's a story forming. Not just of intrusion in a physical sense, but a deeper narrative. Can you see it? Are you taken back into history? The horse had been standing outside the gate, but this tiny work of art is the exact moment the horse is within the gate, and now it's too late. Somebody recorded the story of the Trojan horse that the Greeks used to overtake the city of Troy to destroy it. That kanji now stands as a subtle use of words that could be sent by an intelligence operative to their political leader, maybe as a clear warning. You can imagine the intelligence operative collecting this information or this intel and passing it on to his higher-ups in his own country using the means of kanji. The threat we feared is imminent. Even though this story occurs hundreds of years before, it's all a part of human intel, but it gets even stranger when you look at the kanji for ship. Again, there are breadcrumbs showing up. This tiny work of art contains a boat and a symbol for the number 8 and the symbol for mouths or people. The character for ship is literally a boat with 8 people. 8 people on a boat. Does that sound like an event you've ever heard of? It represents Noah's Ark. 8 souls saved during a time of calamity, the worldwide flood. Noah and his wife, their 3 sons and their wives, 8 people. This is where things start getting eerie. What we may be looking at isn't just a language. In some of the kanji, we might be looking at a time capsule, a visual record of historical human intel. They're not only gathering important events from within their own country, they're recording events from countries from all over the world. So here's the big idea for today. Kanji may not have evolved randomly. It may have been designed, not by one scribe in one place, but by observers, by people who either witnessed the events firsthand or collected the intel from others and encoded them into kanji characters. The originators recognized the events were so momentous, so world-changing, of such historical significance, it was that important to them to record them. They're reminding themselves to pay attention, to take heed. It's like they are ancient intelligence operatives embedding classified information into public writing so obvious no one would think to question it. The kanji Japanese and Chinese people read today were created during the time of Christ, which begs the question, who did this? Did they leave us a clue as to who they were and why? Can we even know who it was that did this? If we find no scroll, what if their written record was the information embedded in the kanji itself? What if they were part of an ancient world's most elite group of cross-cultural record keepers? And what if their way of transmitting knowledge wasn't Western at all, but deeply Far Eastern? In our day and age, where there is so much turmoil throughout the world and generations of people feel directionless, maybe it's time to take a deeper look. If these kanji, these tiny works of art, these codes, contain important messages, then they were put there for a purpose, for future generations to find. We must conclude then they contain vital messages for this generation to discover and take hold. Kanji may be the codex, the author's version of an indestructible written record. It cannot be destroyed by fire or water. It cannot be lost. They're right before our very eyes throughout the Far East to this very day, preserved from the moment they were first conceived 2,000 years ago. Stay with me as we take a look at our first kanji in a series of kanji that will begin to identify the true authors. If a secret were hidden in plain sight, would we even notice? We're reopening the mystery of the Magi, not with folklore, but with evidence, not with nostalgia, but with questions bold enough to shift everything we thought we knew. The next question we should be asking is, if kanji truly carry important pieces of information for specific events, then wouldn't the authors tell us who they were that did this? Wouldn't they leave a trail of evidence so that we could one day know the truth? Where would we look? I looked for years, decades even. I'd searched every nook and cranny, turning over every proverbial stone, trying to find out who created the kanji. And when I had fully exhausted all my ideas, I gave up and figured we will never know. Who really cares anyway? Then one day it revealed itself. It had been right before my very eyes the whole time. I'd been blind to it, but suddenly I couldn't not see it. It was plain as day. I believe they did tell us who they were, not just in one kanji, but in a whole series of kanji that gives us explicit details. What if I told you the word kanji, the very name of the writing system we're exploring, carries the first clue of the identity of its creators? It's the first clue in a series that will tell us exactly who they were. Let's break it down. The word kanji is a Japanese term made up of two characters, kan meaning Chinese and ji meaning character or letter. At surface level, that's all it is, Chinese characters. But we're not staying on the surface, because when you look inside the logograms, the inner workings of these characters, a strange thing begins to emerge. Let's start with the first syllable in the kanji, which is the character kan, meaning Chinese. This character, when broken down, contains within it the radical for husband or man. Hold on to that for a second. Now take a look at the second syllable in kanji, which is ji, meaning character or letter. Inside this character is the radical for child. Husband and child, man and child. Two simple radicals. Easy to overlook, but when you put them together, we begin to see a third idea forming. Husband and child are the two pieces that together mean wise man. Let me say that again. Embedded within the word kanji, the system of writing that has defined a civilization that has spanned millennia, from the ancient world, are two core components that define the word wise man. Now pause with me. Think about that. Is this just coincidence? Or is it a hint or clue? Let's ask a deeper question. Why would the radicals for husband and child be hiding inside the very name of the script, unless the script was trying to tell us something about its source, its authors? You see, in the ancient world, especially in logographic languages like kanji, meaning was never accidental. Every stroke was chosen, every character layered. If a scribe wanted to encode identity, legacy, even authorship, this would be the way to do it. So, what do we do with this? Well, let's take it seriously, because what this might mean is that the very men who created the characters, the authors of kanji themselves, left behind not just a trail of historical events, but a signature. And they didn't sign their names at the end of the book. They embedded it in the title of the entire writing system. The term kanji may not simply refer to Chinese letters only. It may be suggesting the letters of the wise men. And now the question changes from what is kanji to who exactly is this wise man? Let me propose something bold. What if the Magi, the real ones, were not just seekers of wisdom, but preservers of it? What if they were not wanderers looking for meaning, but messengers carrying meaning? What if they recorded their story, the story of their own journey, their observations, revelations, and the cosmic event that they witnessed, into the only language durable enough to survive millennia? Not a spoken tongue, not a parchment, but built into the actual characters telling the story. almost like visual DNA. And what if they encoded their identity in the first clue, right there in the word kanji? We don't know yet who this wise man is, but in the next episode, we'll follow the next breadcrumb, and this one gets even more specific. We'll look at the character that reveals the next layer of identity, not just that the authors were wise men, but exactly who they were, what their mission was, and who was communicating with them. Because these weren't random mystics with a telescope. These were trained, precise, deeply strategic individuals. The next kanji we'll explore gives us insight into their mission, their knowledge, and possibly their purpose. I'm Kent Cisco, and you're listening to Gospel Kanji. We're not just decoding language, we're resurrecting memory. See you next time. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on this amazing investigation.